Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Ledwell and this is the Inspiration Show. Today on the show we're talking about connecting with your calm center. Now I know that being mindful and being centered and being dropped in and being present are all buzzwords that are going around these days. So my special guest today is actually going to help explain exactly what we're talking about and how to use this in your life. So please welcome my special guest, Mr. Steve Taylor. How are you, Steve?
I'm fine, thanks. Hi, Natalie. Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here, all the way from the UK. It's always great to have friends from overseas. What I might do is actually start with asking you what your story and your background is, and how you got into writing a book about connecting with your calm center.
Well, from a young age, I've always had a kind of quite strong spiritual aspect to my personality. Even when I was a teenager, I was drawn to open spaces and to empty spaces, and I was drawn to commune with nature. And in my 20s, I had quite a lot of powerful spiritual experiences. And in my late 20s, that stabilized, and I became quite integrated and reached a kind of stable state of spiritual development. And then I began to write books. I began to write books about spiritual awakening and awakening experiences. But they were prose books. I wrote books about psychology and spirituality, and I became a psychologist as well. I became a psychologist who specializes in spiritual awakening and spiritual experiences. So in my day job, 3 days a week, I am a psychologist. I teach students about transpersonal and spiritual psychology. But I've always had a poetic, kind of literary side to my personality too, which is expressed in these poetic spiritual pieces in the Calm Center.
Right, awesome. So tell me about your spiritual experience. Was there any particular teachings that you got that actually got you into this, or was this something that you were always just aware of?
It was something I was always aware of. It was something innate. And I think my difficulty was when I was younger, I was aware of this spiritual dimension, but at the time I didn't even know the word spiritual. So I didn't really understand it, and I felt quite estranged from the people around me. I felt quite different, and I found it hard to explain these states I was experiencing. My family didn't understand them. My schoolmates didn't understand them. So it took me a long time to understand what I was experiencing. So in my early 20s, I started to read books about spirituality. I started to be interested in Buddhism and Indian spirituality, and I recognized what I was experiencing. So the experiences came first, and then I recognized them in spiritual traditions and other practices.
Right. And so how long were you, were you able to find a community, or did you just start to connect with people through the work that you were doing?
Both, really. I mean, I was always drawn to meditative practices. So I learned meditation when I was in my early 20s. And, I think when you get into spirituality, you naturally become drawn to people who have similar interests. There's a kind of synergy and synchronicity which draws you towards those people, and people are drawn to you as well. So eventually, even if it takes some time, you find a community of like-minded people. So yeah, it took a few years, but eventually I did find that, a very strong, supportive community.
Right. And so in the book we're talking about connecting to your calm center. What exactly is that?
Well, the phrase, the calm center, it really refers to two different things. One thing is the present moment is the calm center. Was one of the pieces in the book. It talks about how if you look into the future, sometimes you see fear in the future, anxiety in the future. If you look into the past, sometimes you see bitterness or guilt, difficult experiences from the past. But when you look into the present, there is only your present experience. So it's a bit like if you're in a hurricane, the present is the calm center in the middle of the hurricane of your thoughts. If you're having difficulty with your thoughts about the future and the past, you can return to the calm center of the present, and that's when you find clarity and contentment. But it also refers to the calm center within us too. The essence of our being, the core of our being, beyond all our thoughts, beyond all our emotions, beyond all the attachments and all the habits we picked up in our lives. There's a pure essence of our being, which is also the calm center.
Right. And is there a certain method or a certain way that we can connect to this essence of ourselves?
Well, any situation where our minds begin to slow down, when the thought chatter of our minds begins to fade away, we naturally find ourselves drawn to the calm center. I think the calm center, because it's the essence of our being, it has a natural magnetic pull which draws us back into it. And it's a question of allowing that pull to manifest itself. So usually it requires a bit of quietness around you, relaxation. It's not going to happen when you're busy at work. It's not going to happen when you're rushing home on the subway at night. It's usually going to happen in a situation where you're relatively quiet, relatively calm. And any activity which allows your mind to slow down slightly, so it could be meditation, it could just be lying down and relaxing, it could be reading a book, it could be going for a run, it could be swimming, any activity which allows your mind to slow down a bit, then the gravitational pull of the calm center begins to work and you're pulled back towards your essence.
Yeah. Now, it sounds lovely, but why would it be, why would people want to do this?
Well, partly because that's when we begin to live authentically. As we grow up through our lives, as we become adults, as we grow older and have more and more experiences, we begin to pick up more and more attachments, more and more influences, and sometimes we lose touch with our core. We lose touch with who we really are. And sometimes we need to clear away some of the clutter, clear away some of the concepts and some of the attachments in order to find out who we really are again.
Right.
And when we do that, there's a marvelous sense of ease and life begins to flow very easily. A lot of the time life seems like an effort. You're trying hard, you're pushing to strive and move further forward. But when you get in touch with the calm center, you latch onto a flow. You don't need to push, you can just flow, you can just swim with the river. And that's when things really begin to happen in your life, I think. That's when things begin to fall into place. That's when events and experiences which we desire deep down are attracted to us. That's when, we latch onto this flow and the flow takes us in the right direction and life begins to work out for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, we're getting to a place where we're still and calm enough so that we can then make more conscious decisions.
That's right, yeah. Or it may even not be conscious in the sense that, it may not actually come from our minds or from our thoughts. It may come from a place deep down inside us. And we may not even be aware of ourselves making the decision. In some way the decision may be made for us by our deeper selves. We may just find ourselves spontaneously moving in the right direction without realizing.
I know I was actually at a women's meeting last night, and one of the women was talking about how she has certain behaviors and thought processes and programs that she knows isn't working in her favor, that she wants to release. She goes, but if I release that, well then who am I? Because that's who I am. But what you're talking about is connecting to a part of us that is not our personality, because we think that we're our personality and we're our material possessions, and we think the things that we've accumulated in our life, but that's not necessarily who we are.
No, that's true. I would say that it's when we begin to declutter ourselves and begin to let go of these things, that's when we find out who we really are. There can be a kind of duality between this created self, which comes from our experiences and our desires and our social interactions. That's like the superficial ego self, which we use to get by in everyday life. But if that self, that kind of superficial social self, becomes so powerful, too powerful, it can disconnect us from our true self. I think there should be a kind of flow, a kind of interaction between the ego self and the deeper self. When there is, that's fine, but it's when the ego self becomes too powerful and we become alienated from the ground of our being. That's when we begin to lose ourselves. We begin to feel that something's not right in our lives. And life begins to go wrong in some ways. Events start not working out for us. Luck seems to be against us. But I think if we can remain attuned to our authentic, deeper self, then we never feel a sense of unease. We never feel that sense of, I'm not really living in the right way, or I'm not really who I'm supposed to be. This doesn't feel right. But if we can remain in contact, there's always a sense of, this is who I'm meant to be. This is the way life is supposed to go.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing this type of work, Steve?
Well, I've been writing books for over 10 years now. And my first book was called The Fall, which came out in 2005, so it was 10 years ago. And after that book was published, it led me to become a speaker and to do workshops and talks. And that actually led me into academic work too. It led me into work as a psychologist and university lecturing. So it's been a very entertaining ride over the last 10 years.
Yeah. So have you noticed a quickening of the awakening of people's essence, or as people, I call it that, our soul? Have you seen a change in the amount of people that are now realizing there's something more, but they don't know what it is?
Definitely, yeah. Certainly over the last 10 years, I would say it's been one of the biggest cultural changes in recent times. I mean, I can remember in the 1990s, that's when I started to get interested in these things. And it was a kind of like a slightly vague undercurrent. There just seemed to be a small minority of people who were interested in spirituality or self-development. But over the last 10 years, it's really exploded. Here in the UK, even, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the UK, mindfulness meditation is being practiced in the government and the Houses of Parliament in the UK. So it's really part of the mainstream now. In schools are using mindfulness meditation. In academia, there's a lot of interest in consciousness and self-development. And it's become almost part of everyday life now, which is fantastic.
So I can imagine that you've worked with many different people over the years. What's some of the changes that you've seen in people, or in the results they're getting in their life as a result of taking the time to be mindful and to connect to their calm center?
Well, I think there's one of the main changes I've noticed is a reduction in stress and an increase in serenity and contentment. And also perhaps one of the changes, quite a subtle change, is people become superficially less ambitious, in the sense that they don't strive as hard. But in a strange way, through not striving as much, they actually begin to achieve more.
Yeah.
Somehow, I've noticed that when people strive really, really hard, if you're sort of pushing yourself too much, it somehow works against you. But if you relax and trust, I think trust is a very important component. Once you have that trust and you don't strive consciously as much, you kind of allow yourself to connect with that flow we were talking about earlier. Then things begin to, life begins to run much more smoothly, and people, they begin to live more authentically.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that since I've started a more of a mindful practice in every day, first of all, I feel alive. Actually, when you were saying that your first book came out in 2005, and I went, 2005 was 10 years ago? Are you kidding me? That was 5 minutes ago. But everything I'm feeling, I'm seeing, I'm not reacting, and I'm not just going through the motions. And even something as basic as unpacking the dishwasher can be a very, mindful thing, and it can be a very a mindful activity where I'm actually still, I'm present, and I'm just in this moment and appreciating and being grateful for what we have.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a big realization. Once you realize that spirituality or meditation, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't have to be a separate aspect of your life. You can bring it into your everyday life. You can be mindful, whatever you're doing, unpacking the dishwasher, washing the dishes, cleaning the house, driving the car. It can always be part of your life. Yeah.
And it's a never-ending process. Like, I believe that personal development is a lifelong process, because we're always, and I know this is sort of a bit of a corny saying, but that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I love what you say about how having the dance between the two, because we are having human experience. So we want to experience those human things, but I think if we have a really good balance between the connection to our essence and our human experience, then those experiences are completely different. We find that they are much more enriching and really help us to expand into a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the monastic way of life. You know, if you become a monk, you remove yourself from everyday life, from family life, and life becomes quite simple. It's a very restricted set of experiences. But it's separating the spiritual and the material. It's separating the spirit from the everyday world, and that can probably cause quite a big imbalance in people.
Yeah.
I think if you can bring your spirituality into everyday life and integrate it very strongly, and it begins to infuse all of your experiences, it becomes much more enriching and much more integrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, it's been an awesome pleasure talking to you today. We've had a fantastic conversation. Now I know that you have your book and everything out. If people want to connect with you or purchase the book or maybe work with you, how can they do that?
Well, the book is called The Calm Center, and obviously you can buy it through Amazon and different places. But the main place is my website, which is Stephen M. Taylor. That's Stephen with a V, M for Mark. So it's stephenmtaylor.com. So people can take a look at my work there, some of my pieces and my essays and my books. And you can also, if you want to make contact, you can contact me through the website.
Yeah, awesome. So guys, if you have been listening to the show today and if something is sparked in you, something sort of woken up or there's something of interest here, I really encourage you to go to Steve's website. So if you're watching this the show online, you can just click to the banner to the side there, and if you're watching this on the app, just click on the banner underneath the video. And I also encourage you to share this video. You can do that by clicking the Facebook and the Twitter share buttons on this page, and also make sure that you leave your email if you haven't done so already, so that we can send you the Manifesting with the Masters video e-course. It's actually valued at $87, and I'd love to send it to you for free. So thanks again, Steve. Absolute pleasure talking to you, my friend.
Thanks, Leslie. It was great. Thank you.
Awesome. So, guys, until next time, remember to live large, choose courageously, and love without limits. We'll see you soon.